You're 3 months into retirement. The paychecks have stopped. You're living off savings for the first time in 40 years. Every time you check your account balance, there's this question in the back of your mind. Is this actually going to work? That feeling, that's what we're addressing today. My name is David Harrington. I spent over 2 decades as an investment banking analyst and portfolio strategist, navigating market cycles, recessions, and financial bubbles. After stepping away from institutional finance, I now focus on helping everyday people, especially those approaching or enjoying retirement, understand money in a calm, practical way. Before we continue, a quick note. This isn't financial advice. Everyone's situation is different. Think of this as education to help you ask better questions and make calmer decisions. By the end of this video, you'll understand what financial stability actually looks like when you're no longer getting a paycheck, and why it's simpler than the financial industry wants you to believe. If this kind of straight talk is helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button. It helps more people find this content. Let's start with something most retirement planning gets wrong. Financial stability during your working years looks completely different from financial stability after you stop working. But most people, and honestly, most financial advisors, don't make this shift clear enough. When you're working, financial stability means building. You're accumulating. Every paycheck adds to what you have. A bad month in the market? You buy more shares at lower prices. A recession? You've got years to recover. Your income keeps flowing regardless of what your investment accounts are doing. That's accumulation phase stability. Retirement is different. You've switched from building the fortress to living inside it. Financial stability now means something else entirely. Knowing your money will outlast you, and sleeping well while that happens. Here's what I learned after leaving Wall Street and talking with hundreds of retirees. Financial stability in retirement comes down to 3 specific things, not dozens of complicated strategies. 3 core elements that determine whether you wake up worried or wake up confident. The first element is income you cannot outlive. This is money that keeps coming no matter how long you live. Social Security is the foundation here for most people. It arrives every month until you die. If you have a pension, that's the same thing, guaranteed income for life. These aren't investments that might go up or down. They're promises that keep paying. Think about what this does for your mind. If Social Security covers $2,400 a month and your pension adds another $1,600, that's $4,000 every single month that you don't have to worry about. You know it's coming. The stock market can drop 30% and this money still arrives. That's not just income. That's psychological foundation. What surprised me when I left institutional finance was how much this matters. On Wall Street, we were always focused on total return, portfolio optimization, beating benchmarks. But when I started working with retirees, I saw something different. The people who slept best at night weren't the ones with the highest portfolio values. They were the ones whose guaranteed income covered their basic living expenses. Here's what this means in real life. Let's say your essential expenses, mortgage or rent, utilities, food, insurance, basic transportation, run about $4,500 a month. If your guaranteed income covers $4,000 of that, you only need to pull $500 from savings each month for the basics. That's $6,000 a year. Even with a modest portfolio, that's sustainable almost indefinitely. Now compare that to someone with the same $4,500 in monthly expenses, but only $2,000 in guaranteed income. They need to pull $2,500 from savings every single month. That's $30,000 a year. Same lifestyle, completely different stress level. The second person is watching their portfolio balance much more nervously. The second element is liquid savings you can access without selling at the wrong time. This is cash and near cash, money market funds, short-term CDs, savings accounts. Not your entire portfolio, but enough to cover 18 to 36 months of living expenses without having to touch your investments. Let me show you why this matters so much. It's early 2022. You're 68 years old. You need $6,000 a month from your portfolio to supplement your Social Security. The market drops 25% that year. If all your money is invested, you're forced to sell shares at depressed prices to pay your bills. You're locking in losses. Those shares never recover for you because you had to sell them. But if you have 24 months of expenses in cash, about $144,000, you don't sell anything. You live off that cash while the market is down. When things recover, your portfolio comes back. You didn't lock in any losses because you weren't forced to sell at the worst time. That cash bought you time and saved you from a permanent mistake. Here's what I found surprising. Most financial advisors will tell you keeping too much cash is a mistake because you're losing purchasing power to inflation. They're not wrong about inflation. Cash does lose buying power over time. But here's what they miss. The real risk in retirement isn't inflation in year 15. It's selling stocks at exactly the wrong moment in year 3 because you didn't have cash available. What sounds good on paper, staying fully invested for maximum returns, crashes into what works in real life. You need breathing room. You need the ability to make calm decisions instead of forced decisions. That's what cash provides. The third element is a withdrawal strategy you actually understand and trust. This isn't complicated. You need to know how much you can take from your portfolio each year without running out of money. And you need to believe that number is realistic. The old rule was 4%. You have $500,000 saved. You can withdraw $20,000 the first year, then adjust for inflation each year after. That guidance came from research in the 1990s. It's not wrong, but it's also not the full picture anymore. Here's what matters more than any specific percentage. Your withdrawal rate needs to match your income floor. Remember that guaranteed income we talked about, Social Security and pensions? The bigger that base, the less you need to pull from savings. Someone with $4,000 a month guaranteed and $5,000 in total expenses only needs $12,000 a year from their portfolio. With $400,000 saved, that's a 3% withdrawal rate. Very sustainable. Someone with the same $400,000 but only $2,000 a month guaranteed and still $5,000 in expenses needs $36,000 a year from the portfolio. That's 9%. That's not sustainable. The money will run out. This is where people get in trouble. They retire without really looking at this math. They assume it'll work out. 3 years in, they realize they're withdrawing too much, and now they're anxious every day. Financial stability means doing this calculation honestly before you retire, not after. Now here's where it gets interesting. These 3 elements work together. They're not separate pieces. They're a system. Your guaranteed income determines how much you need from your portfolio. How much you need from your portfolio determines how much cash you should keep available. How much cash you keep available determines whether you can stick to your withdrawal strategy during bad markets. And whether you can stick to your strategy during bad markets determines whether your money actually lasts. Let me give you a real example. I talked with a couple last year, both 66, just retired. He had Social Security of $2,800 a month. She had $2,200. Small pension from his years in manufacturing, another $900 a month. Total guaranteed income, $5,900 monthly, about $71,000 a year. Their actual spending? They tracked it carefully for 6 months before retiring. Came out to about $7,200 a month, $86,400 a year. So they needed $15,400 annually from their portfolio to cover the gap. They had $520,000 saved. That's a 3% withdrawal rate. Very sustainable. But here's what made it work psychologically. They kept $130,000, about 18 months of total expenses, in a high-yield savings account. The remaining $390,000 stayed invested, mostly in conservative income funds and some stock index funds. They knew they could live for 18 months without touching investments. That meant they could ignore market drops for a year and a half. No forced selling, no panic decisions, just calm, patient behavior. That cash wasn't optimized for returns. It was optimized for peace of mind. And peace of mind kept them from making expensive mistakes. This connects to something else most people miss. Financial stability in retirement isn't just about the numbers adding up on a spreadsheet. It's about the psychological experience of living this way. Can you sleep at night? Can you enjoy your life? Can you stop checking your account balance every day? I've seen people with $2 million who were stressed constantly because they didn't have these 3 elements in place. And I've seen people with $400,000 who were completely calm because they did. The difference wasn't the amount. It was the structure. Here's what this means if you're approaching retirement. Before you stop working, you need to answer 3 questions clearly. First, what's my guaranteed monthly income going to be? Add up Social Security, pensions, annuities, anything that pays for life. Second, what do I actually spend every month? Not what you think you spend. what you really spend. Track it honestly for at least 6 months. Third, what's the gap between those two numbers? And can my savings sustainably fill it? If your guaranteed income is $4,000 and you spend $6,500, you need $30,000 a year from savings. With $500,000, that's 6%. That might work for a while, but it's pushing the edge. You'd want to either increase guaranteed income, maybe delay Social Security to get a bigger benefit, or reduce spending before you retire. But if your guaranteed income is $5,000 and you spend $6,500, you need $18,000 a year. With that same $500,000, that's 3.6%. Much more sustainable. Same spending, same savings, completely different outcome just because of higher guaranteed income. This is where timing Social Security becomes important. Every year you delay between 62 and 70, your benefit grows about 8%. That's guaranteed growth. No market risk. If delaying from 65 to 67 increases your benefit from $2,200 to $2,550, that's an extra $4,200 a year for the rest of your life. That might reduce what you need from savings enough to make everything else work smoothly. Now let's talk about what financial stability looks like day to day, because this is what really matters. You wake up in the morning and you're not immediately thinking about money. You're not wondering if you can afford to turn on the heat or if that doctor's appointment is going to wreck your budget. You make plans to visit your grandchildren without calculating whether the gas money will break something else in your budget. When you hear on the news that the market dropped, you notice it, but you're not panicked. You know you have cash to cover your needs for the next 18 months. You know your guaranteed income keeps coming. You know you don't have to sell anything at the bottom. So you change the channel and make dinner. That's stability. Not having the most money. Not beating the market. Having enough structured the right way that you can actually enjoy your retirement instead of spending it worried. Here's what I learned about this after 2 decades on Wall Street. The financial industry makes retirement seem more complicated than it needs to be. They benefit from complexity. The more confused you are, the more you think you need their sophisticated strategies and expensive products. But most people don't need sophisticated. They need solid. Solid means guaranteed income covering your basics. Solid means liquid cash for 18 to 36 months of expenses. Solid means a withdrawal rate you understand and trust. That's not exciting. It doesn't involve complicated tax strategies or alternative investments or market timing. But it works. It lets you sleep at night. And that's what financial stability actually is. If you're already retired and you realize you don't have this structure in place, it's not too late. Start by calculating your guaranteed income floor. Be honest about your spending. Figure out the gap. Then look at whether your withdrawal rate is sustainable. If it's not, you have 2 levers: increase guaranteed income or reduce spending. Sometimes both. Building up that cash cushion might mean selling some investments during a good market period and just holding cash for a while. Yes, that cash loses a bit to inflation. But what you gain in psychological stability and protection from forced selling is worth far more than the inflation cost. Let me be direct about something. If you're reading this and you're 75 and you've been retired for 10 years and you're doing fine, you probably already figured this out instinctively. You might not have used these exact terms, but you built stability without calling it that. This video is really for people earlier in the process, late 50s, early 60s, first few years of retirement, who are still figuring out what stable actually feels like. Here's what stability doesn't mean. It doesn't mean nothing ever goes wrong. Your car will break down. Your roof will need replacing. Medical bills will surprise you. Stability means when those things happen, you handle them without derailing everything else. You pull from your cash cushion, you deal with it, you replenish the cash over the next few months, and you move on. The system absorbs the shock. What I saw during the 2008 financial crisis taught me this lesson permanently. The retirees who panicked and sold everything at the bottom, they locked in losses they never recovered from. The ones who stayed calm, they had cash reserves. They had guaranteed income covering basics. They didn't need to sell. They waited. Their portfolios recovered. Same market, completely different outcomes, entirely based on whether they'd built stability before the crisis hit. You can't build stability during a crisis. You have to build it before. That's the whole point. When things are calm, when markets are good, that's when you create the structure that protects you when things aren't calm. Think about it this way. Financial stability in retirement is like a three-legged stool. Guaranteed income is one leg. Liquid cash reserves is another leg. Sustainable withdrawal strategy is the third. You need all three. Two isn't enough. The stool tips over. But with all three in place, you can sit confidently. Most of the retirement anxiety I see comes from people missing one of these legs. They have decent savings, but no guaranteed income beyond Social Security. So they're nervous about market drops. Or they have good guaranteed income, but they kept almost everything invested with no cash cushion. So one unexpected expense creates stress. Or they never calculated whether their withdrawal rate is sustainable. So they're just guessing and hoping. Guessing and hoping isn't a strategy. It's a recipe for worry. What I want for you is better than that. I want you to know your numbers, understand your structure, trust that you've built something that will hold. Here's your next step. If you haven't already, sit down this week and write out these three numbers. 1. Your guaranteed monthly income. 2. Your actual monthly spending. 3. The gap between them, multiplied by 12 to get your annual withdrawal need. Then divide that annual need by your total savings to get your withdrawal rate percentage. If that percentage is under 4, you're probably in good shape. Between 4 and 5, you're okay, but should be careful. Over 5, you need to make changes, either increase guaranteed income, reduce spending, or work a bit longer to build more savings. This isn't fun work. It's not exciting, but it's the foundation of sleeping well at night for the next 20 or 30 years. Your future self, the person you'll be at 80 or 85, is counting on you to do this math now while you still have time to adjust. Financial stability after you stop working looks quieter than most people expect. It's not dramatic. You're not beating the market or impressing anyone with sophisticated strategies. You're just calm. Bills get paid. Life gets lived. Problems get handled. And you're not lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering if you're going to run out of money. That might not sound exciting, but if you're 68 years old and you haven't had to worry about money in 5 years because you built this structure correctly, exciting is overrated. Calm is exactly what you want.